Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of What If. I got this idea from a good friend of mine, Brian, who I hope is watching this because this is actually interesting. So today I'm going to examine what if Ryan Leaf was drafted number 1 overall to the Indianapolis Colts and Peyton Manning went number 2 overall to the Chargers. Well, before you do that, you have to look into before the 1998 NFL draft. Ryan Leaf was quoted as saying that he didn't want to go to Indianapolis, that it was too cold for him. They wanted to go somewhere warmer. And in the pre-draft processes, several scouting reports were very high on Ryan Leaf, but one in particular said that there might be something missing. And that if Leaf wanted to be the best quarterback in the NFL, he could be, but something just isn't there mentally. The Colts, however, refused to heed the warnings, and Ryan Leaf would be drafted number 1 overall. Peyton Manning would go number 2 overall to the Chargers, but Peyton's father, Archie Manning, was not okay with that. Similar to the situation with Eli Manning in real life in 2005, or 2004, one of the two, he tries to get Peyton Manning traded, and he succeeds. Peyton Manning gets his reputation as a spoiled kid, but the Panthers trade for Peyton Manning because apparently they were going after Peyton Manning in the first place. They traded their number 14, number 62, and their 1999 first-round pick for Peyton Manning. Then we go into the offseason. Ryan Leaf refuses to show up to training camp because he doesn't want to play in Indy without a hefty sum of money. Colts shell out a record contract because they really don't have a choice. So right before the first game, Ryan Leaf suits up for his first practice. The Colts at this time get Jim Harbaugh from the free agent list, going ahead and running him for another year because they don't know if they can trust Leaf to start right away. So in 1998, Peyton Manning threw 25 interceptions, but he was able to connect on 20 touchdowns in an otherwise 6-10 dismal season. Musa Muhammad became a key pass catcher for Peyton, tallying up 70 receptions and going over 1,000 yards. Meanwhile, Ryan Leaf struggled to get on the field, not really able to win the starting job, and Jim Harbaugh threw for 1,500 yards and 20 interceptions. The quarterback situation is dire in Indianapolis, and Ryan Leaf is quoted as saying, "Screw Indianapolis," and complaining about how cold it is. The Colts managed to go 5-11, but it's literally just because of Marshall Faulk. So in the 1999 NFL draft, the Panthers don't have a first-round pick. They decide not to put much towards offense, sticking with Peyton Manning and his lackluster supporting cast other than Muhammad. The Colts, meanwhile, snag David Boston, hoping that he will be a top receiver for their quarterback conglomerate. Jim Harbaugh, of course, continues to stay as the backup, and Marshall Faulk also stays in Indy instead of being traded to St. Louis, meaning that the Rams' greatest show on turf never really gets going. In the second season for these two quarterbacks, Peyton Manning spends a long, hard offseason improving his accuracy. As a result, he's able to cut down to 15 interceptions, throwing 27 touchdowns. Despite that, though, the fans haven't warmed up to Peyton. They still think that he's a spoiled, rotten brat. But one person who likes Peyton is Musa Muhammad, who, despite nagging hamstring injuries, manages to have a 950-yard receiving touchdown with 9 touchdowns. A receiving yard season, I should say. The Panthers go 8-8. They just miss out on the playoffs to the Rams, who in real life would secure a Super Bowl championship, but in this simulation do not because of the fact that they don't have a running game. Meanwhile, Ryan Leaf finally gets his first start in late 1999, and behind a solid improved offensive line, delivers several impressive balls that show the Colts why they believe in Leaf. However, Leaf's actions behind the scenes are getting worse. He shows up late to meetings, he trash talks the coaches, and as a result, he is benched for the last 2 games of the season. Teammates then notice a quieter demeanor about Leaf. The Colts go 5-11 and Jim Mora is fired. They hire Bill Belichick, who was just fired from the Jets for a losing record. So that means the Patriots never get Bill Belichick. But in the 2000 offseason, Ryan Leaf and Bill Belichick have some tension between them. As a result, Belichick asks that Leaf be traded. Leaf is indeed traded to warmer Miami, where he looks to replace Dan Marino, competing with Damon Huard for the starting job. Meanwhile, Peyton continues to try to become a better quarterback, this time working on his arm strength. In the 2000 NFL Draft, the Dolphins, with their new head coach Dave Wanstead at the helm, They don't take anyone major except for a solid offensive lineman, showing confidence in Leaf and Heward. Meanwhile, the Panthers focused on their defense and offensive line, trusting Manning and Co. to carry the offense. Going into the 2000 season, Ryan Leaf manages to beat out Damon Heward for the starting job in the preseason, despite having clearly worse stats and less pocket poise. He does throw some absolutely brilliant balls, including a Hail Mary at the end of a game against New England that steals a divisional game. However, Leaf finishes with just 10 touchdowns versus 17 interceptions, throwing for just under 2,000 yards. The Dolphins managed to finish 10-6 and make it to the playoffs, but it's mostly the defense that did it. In their wildcard game, though, Ryan Leaf has an absolute meltdown, throwing for 4 picks compared to 3 completions. After the game, the media tries to talk to Leaf, and Leaf flips off the cameras and walks away without a word. Meanwhile, Carolina's Peyton Manning shines, leading the Panthers to a 13-3 record. Manning throws for 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 10 interceptions, and he finally gets his first MVP consideration, but loses out to Indianapolis's Marshall Faulk, who had 25 combined yards of offense due to a lack of anyone around him. In Carolina's divisional playoff game, Manning's Panthers fall to the Packers despite a heroic comeback attempt by Manning. After the game, Manning is professional, shouldering the blame for the loss. That brings us to the 2001 offseason, where Leaf's tantrum causes Dave Wanstead to ask for Ryan Leaf's release. The owner of the Dolphins, Wayne Huizenga, refuses, leading to Wanstead walking out. Herm Edwards is now the new coach of the Dolphins, and he says he's excited to take over as the head coach and coach Ryan Leaf. However, Leaf manages to get a DUI in the offseason. He reaches a plea deal, though, and gets out of it. Meanwhile, Manning spends the offseason helping his little brother Eli, who is playing for Ole Miss, to improve his mechanics. So that allows Peyton Manning to continue to develop, as well as helping out his little brother for the future. In the 2001 NFL Draft, the Panthers don't get a linebacker, instead selecting Reggie Wayne to complement Musa Muhammad in the Panthers offense for their draft pick. That means that for probably another 10 years, the Panthers are set at receiver. Meanwhile, the Dolphins go more defense in the first round, but in the second round, they pick up a receiver of their own, Chris Chambers, hoping a good receiver can help Leaf. And Leaf is named the unquestioned starter. But a week into the 2001 preseason, Leaf gets his second DUI of the year. As a result, the Dolphins cut him, tired of his antics. The Buccaneers pounce on him, and Leaf is given a chance to be a second-string quarterback. He's not happy about it, but he understands he has to earn his shot. But he struggles in the rest of the preseason, and the Buccaneers cut him. Leaf is frustrated, and as a result, he goes on on media tirades about how bad he's been treated. He tells the media that the Buccaneers didn't give him a fair chance, and that the Dolphins weren't worth anything to him, and that they just didn't like him, so they cut him. After 4 weeks, though, despite the trash talking, the Buccaneers pick him back up because they don't have a choice. Their starting quarterback, Brad Johnson, gets hurt, and Leaf is getting given a chance to be the backup to the replacement for the Buccaneers. In limited action, though, Leaf throws for 2 touchdowns and no picks. The Bucs go 8-8, just missing out on the playoffs to divisional rival Carolina. This is because Peyton Manning delivers the best season of his career despite a defense that's unable to pressure the opposing team and an offensive line ravaged by injuries. Manning throws for 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, leading the Panthers to a 9-7 record. In the wildcard round, though, Manning throws a pick to seal a loss for Carolina. And that leads us to the 2002 offseason. Leaf does not resign with the Buccaneers, saying that he will retire unless he's given a starting job. Nothing comes of it, and at 26 years old, Ryan Leaf calls it quits. He ends up in jail a few years later due to another DUI incident, and has been rumored to have done a lot of drugs. He's still the biggest draft bust in NFL history. There was no saving that. So Ryan Leaf would not have been any better off anywhere else. Peyton Manning goes on to have a Hall of Fame career meanwhile, but he never quite shakes off the adage of being a spoiled brat. Many say that Manning isn't that talented due to his supporting cast always being good, but Manning's 4 NFL MVPs and 2 Super Bowls say otherwise. He retires at the age of 38 after winning his second Super Bowl with the Panthers. So that's how I think it would happen if Leaf and Manning had been drafted 1 and 2 instead of the other way around. So hopefully you all enjoyed this, and if you did, and you comment, I might just do some more of these. So thank you.